Well, hello, and welcome into another edition of 8Sports Nightcap here on WRCNow.com, on our Facebook, our YouTube page, and, of course, on the WRC Plus app, which you can get on Apple TV and all your other smart TV devices. Special show today, as you can see on your screen here. We're joined by the head coach of the University of Richmond Spiders women's basketball team, Aaron Roussell. Thanks so much for swinging by the studio and sitting down with us today.
Happy to do it. Excited to catch up with you.
Yeah, it's kind of probably an interesting time of year for you. For us, it's like football, everything, and it's finally getting busy. But for you guys, probably practice is starting up, right? And you're kind of really getting into what I hate to put it in football terms, but fall camp for
Sure.
when football shows up on campus. You guys, I mean, your season's right around the corner too.
Yeah, it is. And don't get me wrong, we're all football fans, so it's still football season to a certain extent. It's basketball's changed so much, right? So it's now, it is sad to say, kind of in some ways, a year-round sport. Our players, they probably got about 4 weeks off when school ended. We brought them back for a good 6-7 weeks. We had some camps, had some instruction. I think we got a lot better. We were really young this year, so I think the summer was good for us.
Yeah.
And here we are, man. We're in week 2 of, quote, preseason, but I don't know that we ever left the preseason mode when the summer left.
Yeah, you mentioned football a little bit. Are you a big football fan? Do you have a team? I know you're from where you went to school at Iowa, but
went to school
are
at
you
Iowa.
from Iowa?
Yeah, so still an Iowa football fan.
Okay.
Obviously, Spiders are big for us. I don't know why this happened. I apologize to my son all the time, but I've made him a Vikings fan just like me. So we've shared some heartbreak. There's optimism this time of year, but we've experienced some heartbreak as well.
Let's just go ahead and hop into that, your background a little bit. So did you grow up in Iowa or was it Minnesota?
Yeah, so I'm from Minnesota. I claim Minnesota still to be home.
Yeah.
Family still lives back that way. Went to University of Iowa. My dad was from Iowa, so that was kind of the team I was already rooting for growing up. We moved to Texas, so I grew up. I say I grew up in Texas, but home is Minnesota. Family was just able to get back there this summer. As I remind my family, I don't really come back there in the winter. One, because of job, really because of weather. But it was great. Summers in the Midwest are outstanding. So I was able to get back home with the family a little bit. But then, like you said, man, basketball season has arrived.
Yeah, exactly. And I kind of, dove into the Wikipedia page as you do, spend some time right out of college as a JV basketball coach, and then you go from there to being a grad assistant at Minnesota State, at Minnesota State, then spend some time from there, from a grad assistant to a head coaching position at the University of Chicago with the Maroons, and then of course you were at Bucknell before you came to Richmond. I'm curious how you go from journalism major at Iowa, as you mentioned, to all of a sudden having this career path of women's basketball.
Well, journalism, political science was the background. If you told me the dream job at that point, it would have been, hey, I want to be a sportscaster. I want to be a college basketball coach, and never really thought either one of them could become a reality. So my path during undergrad was going to law school. I'd coached AAU boys basketball in the summers and had done some of the youth stuff, worked camps in the summers, but never thought of it as a career, and really thought I was just taking a gap year between undergrad and law school. And during that time was able to coach high school basketball and met some people, stayed in it, and then got to University of Chicago. And I tell people I was 25, didn't know anything. Coach that just hired me left 2 weeks after she hired me, and it was about 2 weeks before the season started. So I was 25. I'll never forget AD coming in and said, I don't know you, but you have a base on out of bounds play. And that's how it started. So I was interim coach that year, was able to kind of navigate that a little bit, and rest is history, as they say. 8 great years at University of Chicago and then at Bucknell, and I guess we're into year 7, which sounds crazy, here in Richmond.
Yeah, how have you liked it here at Richmond? You mentioned, your son's growing up, going to high school. I mean, he's been here for a while now. I feel like a family, this probably feels like home at this point now. It's 7 years here.
Absolutely, yeah. But my wife and I are both from the Midwest. I think our children know Richmond to be home. I think anybody that knows me knows our family. We're very much ingrained in the local community. That's at Richmond. That's in the neighborhood. That's at school. That's at church. My wife's very much involved, and this is home. I think this is what a lot of people seem surprised by that. And hey, the Midwest is this. Like this legitimately is home, and I just couldn't imagine us being any happier anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that had something to do with the big news that came out in April that you decided to stay a little longer, sign a contract extension. On top of that, you returned so much talent from last year's team. It seems like the girls love it here in Richmond. They want to stick around. I'm sure that they had teams calling. I'm sure that you had teams calling you after the success of last year as well. What makes you want to stay?
It's the nature of the business right now. I'm very proud of the fact. I think the retention for our program has been high. I think that's a combination of how our university resources and treats our players and treats us. I think surrounded by a great coaching staff that I think really puts a focus on player development and personal development. So I think it's a great spot for us to be, but it's a great spot for our players. And those things kind of get married together too, right? Like, I'm very proud of the fact that none of our players went in the transfer portal after the end of the season. But you can imagine how popular they were, even though they were not in the transfer portal and the opportunities that they got. So it's one of those things where, you feel that commitment coming back from your players. That aids things for us as a family, but this is truly where we wanted to be, and when those guys were all in, I think that really solidified our desire, our hope to be here. And our administration, our school president, our administration, John Hart. I actually worked for John at Bucknell University, then hired me here. So the loyalty that he's shown to me, the resources he's given to me, and I hate to say a package deal, maybe he's stuck with me, but very, very fortuitous for everything they've been able to give us here.
Yeah, and to kind of talk about maybe those first couple of years, 15 and 17 your first year, then COVID kind of happened, 13 and 9, 16 and 14, and then 21 and 11, and then the last 2 years happened where it's like you guys seem unstoppable, especially in conference play. What was the maybe some of the challenges you had in those first couple of years to try to get what you were trying to build going to now what it seems like, you probably are at where you want to be in terms of how the team's going?
Yeah. I think obviously, recruiting has a big part of that. I think we recruited a lot of players that fit us, that fit the style that we wanted to play. That being said, I absolutely loved and adored the kids that we inherited too, and I think that was something that was really important to us, that this is not one of those, hey, wait till coach gets his crew in there, wait till this. Like I think we're very indebted to the crew that we inherited. I think they did a lot of things that maybe don't show up in a box score, don't show up in a program building, but they're, hopefully they all feel a big piece of cutting down the nets and the trophies that the success we've been able to have. They really did kind of lay that groundwork. And then, you recruit Eddie Budnick, and, this is weird for me right now, right? Like she was kind of our first recruiting class, really kind of one of our first commits. Yeah. It seems so long ago before COVID, that you're coaching the University of Richmond, and that's the last time I coached a basketball game without Addie Budnick on the floor. Yeah. So I think the Addie and her class, Grace Townsend, a local recruit for us. But I go back to our staff, man. I think just the staff, the way that they kind of love each other, the way that we get along, the way that we've worked together. This has been a build. They've had opportunities to go other places, and they seem very committed to being here. So it's like everything, man. It's the people around you make this great, and I think that's why we want to be here. It's why we want to be here for a long time, and I think with that comes success, and you can say it's chicken and egg, but I really, really have felt all three places I've been, you have to establish a culture. You have to establish the standards. People have to want to be there. Yeah. It's a different business, and I hate to say that word business than it was a few years ago. Excuse me. But this was before anybody, I never wanted to make this, hey, this is a job. Again, some of that has changed with the NCAA landscape, but I never wanted anybody to feel like this is a job. And we've really talked with our staff even right now of nothing should change, right? Our resources that some of our players are able to get is outstanding, very happy for them. But this is still the same basketball program, the same way that we want to do things into the future.
To kind of talk about, maybe the success of last year, if you could bring your mic a little further in front of you. There you go. To go on the road all the way out to the West Coast and get that NCAA tournament win. I mean, how special was that? Your first NCAA tournament win at the Division I level, and the girls to make that trip and get that victory, and then go wire to wire with one of the best teams in the country as well. Yeah,
and like a lot of things, it starts with some disappointment. Right. I mean, obviously we are over at Henrico, and it's a building that's been really great to us. We never lost a game in that building. We're feeling good about things. Go into a tough team against St. Joe's, but it's also a team that we had some success against, and things go well. All of a sudden, you think things go well, and it wasn't even like 0.1 on the clock. It was like 0.0 on the clock. And, they're telling us we won, and then all of a sudden it's taken from you. So I think just the adversity that our team had to go through strengthened us, right? So you go through 32 games up until that point, you think you build so much of this stuff, and we had a lot of things go well. And so I think that disappointment, it forced us to kind of sit there for about a week before we even knew that we were going to get in the tournament. Those were some tough practices for us. They weren't very good practices for us. So it took us some time to figure out that bounce back. And then it was just like a breath of fresh air. Once we saw our name on there, it was like, yes, we knew that we weren't finished. We knew that we could do something on the national level. We were heartbroken because we knew what we could do, and we didn't think we were going to have a chance to potentially even have that opportunity to show the world what we could do. The matchup was the matchup, but man, I just felt it with that week that our kids were ready. I knew our staff was ready, that the preparation, everybody was just locked in. You never know, but I couldn't have felt more confident going into that game. And to be honest with you, even the UCLA game, you mentioned, a 26-point win against an ACC opponent. That's pretty cool. Top 25 opponent. I was just as impressed, if not equally proud of our players, the way that they played against UCLA. As you mentioned, everything comes together, right? You're out in Los Angeles, California. Our locker room, people don't realize this, our locker room that week was the UCLA men's locker room all week long. Like, just think about this as a basketball mind, a basketball historian of everything that's happened in that arena. We took our kids to go see John Wooden's office. So it was just, and we said, I think this was the last thing we said before we went out to the Georgia Tech game, was there's been an amazing amount of celebration. Some of the best in NCAA history have happened in this locker room. Let's get back here in 2 hours and live it up. And from the bench that got in at the end to the players that played, I know Maggie Dugan had a game of a lifetime there, but that was just, everybody was locked in. Still get chills thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that, probably fueled them as well for next year. You mentioned, though, the seeding, and I remember talking with you after the loss over at the Enrico Sports Center, and, whether or not, the nerves of, are we going to be able to get in? Can we get in? Were you worried, or I don't know, you definitely weren't worried, I know that, but, curious if, did we do enough to get in? And then were you maybe upset even with the 8, thinking the amount of work that you have guys done that you deserved maybe even higher seed than 8?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I think everything worked out maybe better, and this wasn't like a loser mindset or trying to re-engineer any of this stuff. Like, we felt we had done enough. And I'm such a numbers guy. I've studied this stuff even before we were any good. I loved the selection stuff. And so I had really done a deep dive. I didn't see a scenario that we wouldn't be in, but you just never know. At this time, the mid-major, it is so many things are hard, but getting access to the tournament is incredibly difficult right now. So it wasn't a foregone conclusion. If anything, maybe you felt like you missed an opportunity to get a higher seed. And was it a play-in game? Was it some of that? So I think we were trying to prepare ourselves for a whole bunch of different scenarios. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I was even thinking about the 8 seed. Now you look back and you're like, hey, could we have gotten the 6? But I see the loss against St. Joe's, to all of the disappointment. I've thought like this for a long time. There just isn't anything I would have changed about last year. Mm-hmm. The disappointment, the celebrations, the graduations, the everything that happened was supposed to happen that way, and you literally could not paint the picture of the last week and a half that our team was able to experience together. You couldn't paint that any better. So I'm glad our players got that opportunity. I'm glad our university got that opportunity. The department got this opportunity. The local fans here, it was magical. And we could talk about this coming season. I hope there's still going to be great things ahead. But man, that's a lifetime moment that I think a lot of us, it's going to be hard to supplant that.
Yeah, not to mention the 17-game winning streak, you guys.
Right, and I think that was part of it too, right, Nolan? Like, so many people were like, hey, maybe you should lose one. Maybe it'd be better off if you are. And as a coach, you didn't want that, right? Because you don't know if that's the difference when getting at large had you needed it. So I still contend that I'm glad that we did not lose during that stretch. But at the same point, I'd be lying if I didn't realize that loss and that adversity helped us and propelled us into the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. And before we get into maybe this upcoming season, we'll talk about the summer a little bit. I mean, USA basketball all over the Richmond program. You were involved with the U19 team trials run, and then of course Rachel Olstrom, she got an awesome experience playing for representing the nation as well. How did that come about? Yeah,
and I think it probably goes back to anytime you have success as a program, you start putting yourself on the radar for folks like this. And USA basketball, anybody that's done anything with basketball or just been a fan for the last, really before this, but 92 changed everything, right? Like this is, you'd ask any coach, the opportunity to be involved with USA basketball is like the lifetime moment. It's gold for lack of a better analogy. And so early enough, we were coming out of the season, I think when our players decided they were I have to say, recommitting to the program.
Yeah.
You know, we had the opportunity for 4 of them to go to Phoenix for the 3x3 Nationals. And so I think with that, they were able to kind of be on, with Maggie and Rachel especially, able to be on some USA basketball radar again there. Maggie getting the AmeriCup invite. I mean, it's the 21 best players in the country are vying for those spots. And the being able for me to be with the U19s was great, but it also allowed me to be out there with Maggie and see her compete against that level. And, you know, decisions are decisions, but I couldn't have been prouder of what she showed out there. And Rachel, I mean, people, it's shame on them for anybody that forgets about Rachel, right?
Yeah.
Like Rachel was one of the best players in our region at any level last year. And, you know, for Maggie to get those opportunities was great. Rachel played incredible down in Phoenix. She had a great season. She's 6'1". She shoots the basketball well. She does so many things well. I've always thought she was a perfect 3x3, 3-on-3 participant. And for her to be able to go down to Chile and you know, really, we've been joking, it's really the South Pole. I mean, she was down in like Patagonia. You don't even realize that's still Chile. Like that Santiago is a whole nother world, northern Chile. So just amazing experiences for her. Yes, I fully understand as their basketball coach that it's going to mean great things. They got better because of that, but I'm just so happy that they got those opportunities. You know, again, I don't think we're wearing as much as maybe we could, but knowing that we all have some USA basketball gear and got that opportunity. I mean, it was chilling, man. I'm not going to hide from that.
Be nice.
Yeah, like I remember getting back to the hotel room and like the goosebumps that when you're taking everything out of the bag and preparing everything for the week, like I'm
putting it all out on the bed.
Oh, I was, man, and I was afraid to put an iron to it. I didn't want to, you know, you didn't make sure there wasn't a crease, but you're afraid to mess anything up. And you know, it just very grateful for those guys for giving us that opportunity, but very grateful for USA Basketball. And uniquely enough, you know, Corey Close was the head of the USA Basketball Selection Committee. So obviously, I think, you know, having the game that we had against them at UCLA, while disappointing that we weren't able to get the win, probably did have an effect on the opportunities that our program had moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And those girls coming back, you know, again this season, I know there's a lot of excitement. You brought in a couple of good transfers as well. That should, I would imagine, get some minutes as well. You know, you mentioned you've had some preseason practices and stuff. Does it feel like you're kind of restarting, or are the new girls kind of meshing well?
Yeah, a little bit of both. You know, I think even have to remind our staff, have to remind me, definitely remind our seniors that like every season is a build. I for doing this long enough, 22 years now, like you don't start the next season where you ended the season before. Like all that laying of the foundation that happened early in the season you have to redo all of this, right? You're almost tearing it down and resetting it back up. And you know, the experiences that we had last year will help us. It changes the standards. It changes how when practices have gone bad or gone poorly, it changes the level of accountability, especially from our older kids. Yeah. Probably sometimes changes the frustration. But you know, as a senior, you don't remember back to the beginning of last year. You don't remember back to when you were a freshman. So you kind of have to go through those growing pains. Having Maggie back, having Rachel back, you know, we haven't even mentioned Allie Sweeney, but your point guard from the year before, having her back is incredible. And not many people. So when I'm sitting here saying that, don't forget that we lost 6 grad students from last season. Like that was a big part of what we did. That was a huge part of our rotation. So while I appreciate the expectations being high for our program, I think there's a little bit, and I want those, right? Like everything that we've done to this point is a starting point. We are not trying to lower our expectations by any stretch, but there is a little bit of a slowing of the roll, so to speak, as the head coach of the program. That's like, hey, we got to do some things better, right? Yeah. Don't let anybody else. Nick Saban, I think, always talked about the rat poison.
Of course,
that's out there. You know, there's a lot of poison out there that if you start taking those pills and believe what people are telling you, you're gonna miss some steps. And my job is to hold that accountability, to remind them that there are some steps that need to have happen. We were not what we were at the end of the season. We were not that last summer, right? I don't care what you say about all the talent we had. We miss a lot of that. But a lot of the same mistakes and things that aren't going well right now didn't go well at this point last year either. So there's a heightening of expectations, but at the same point, you know, I think we kind of have to ground our kids for what we are at the very start of September here.
Last year, you spoke about you guys didn't. You were much better at the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, you got the opportunity to play some really good non-conference games, right? I know that the full schedule hasn't been released yet, but can we expect any of those, marquee matchups? Were you able to schedule those this year? Or now people are scared to. I don't want to say scared's the right word, but maybe don't want to schedule.
Well, I will say part of the difficulty of the schedule last year, as far as opponents, was how difficult it was to put the schedule together. You know, as much as I felt strongly about what our team could be last year, and I remember saying during some practice last summer, like, bring it on. There isn't a team out there that wouldn't want to play. I don't know if I would have loaded up the way that we had we had some choices there, but it also kind of changed the expectations of our program moving forward. Like, that's who we want to play. Our players, with all due respect to other options out there, they want to see that this is a team that's an NCAA tournament team. We know what we are as a mid-major, that for us to get the seed that we want, to need an at-large if we need to get that and things don't go well in Henrico in March, that we need some of those games and opportunities, and that's what helped us last year. So yeah, I know cat's out of the bag a little bit, and I'm sure by the time this airs, it'll be public. But some teams we played last year with Columbia, who had a great season. William and Mary was an NCAA tournament team last year. Fairfield, one of the best mid majors out there. So we'll see those guys again, and we really started this by, let's go find all the NCAA tournaments teams that we could find, and let's get them on the schedule. So it's great to have Texas in the Robins Center this past year.
Oh yeah,
we'll be able to go back there. We really tried to find that marquee game for the Robins Center, and there's still good teams are coming. Like I mentioned, Fairfield is coming here. We probably aren't able to get a top 5 team to come here. That's a struggle, but very grateful for the opportunity over at Henrico. I think people are going to be pretty excited about the caliber of teams that are coming to the Henrico tournament right before Christmas this year.
Perfect. Well, I know we're really excited about this season, Coach. Thanks again for swinging by the studio. We'll be at all the games this year, so looking forward to seeing what you put out there this year.
Well, I appreciate it. We're really, really excited. It'll be a fun year. Asked our team to have some patience. We know we had to have some patience, but standards are standards, man. And everything that we got to experience last year, we want another crack at that, another piece of that cake.
Yeah, I know the fans and our viewers are excited for it. So thanks, Coach.
Great. Thank you.